Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into the reality of how smart entrepreneurs actually finance their businesses. You've got the vision, you've got the drive, and you've definitely got a product that solves a real problem. The only thing missing? The capital to actually make it happen. You know the drill. Having a great idea is literally just the starting line. But the real question, the one that keeps founders up at night, is how you bridge that massive gap between an idea and the capital needed to grow it. It's a gap where countless businesses just run out of cash and fail. So do successful founders simply drain their own life savings? Do they just walk into a bank and demand a loan? Or do they immediately pitch to outside investors? Well, in this explainer, we're going to unpack how business financing truly works behind the scenes and how you can pick the absolute best funding source for your specific stage of growth. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with the financing reality check, push through surviving the startup phase, uncover the secret to getting funded, break down what lenders really want, figure out choosing your funding path, and finally, show you how to avoid the biggest funding mistake. Let's jump right into section 1, the financing reality check. We really need to understand the true purpose of funding your day-to-day operations. At its core, financing is basically building a bridge. It's getting the cash you need to keep the lights on, paying for inventory, making payroll, running ads, and covering rent before your customer revenue can actually cover those costs. Think about it. Every single business has expenses right out of the gate, right? Ideally, customer sales pay for all that. But the reality is, there's a huge lag. You're almost always going to face a significant working capital deficit before you ever break even. That cash flow gap is exactly where financing comes in. But the ultimate question any capital provider is going to ask is, can this business eventually generate enough profit to pay us back? Which brings us to section 2, surviving the startup phase, or as I like to call it, navigating the highest risk era. Look, in the startup phase, you're facing a super common, incredibly frustrating problem. You're burning cash, but barely bringing any in. Because of this, traditional lenders like banks, they won't even look at you. You just don't have the track record. This forces founders to tap into personal networks. Sometimes people jokingly call it the 3 Fs, friends, family, and fools. We're talking about draining your personal savings, pitching to your immediate circle, bringing on daring business partners, or hunting down high-risk angel investors. Actually, at this stage, founders almost always have to put their own skin in the game because, frankly, nobody knows if the business is going to work out yet. It's the highest risk phase of the whole journey, and your funding sources perfectly reflect that risk. Moving right along to section 3, the secret to getting funded. This is where we transition from pure passion to hard numbers. So, what's the secret sauce for moving past that risky early stage? It all boils down to one absolutely crucial concept: repayment capacity. Before anyone writes you a check, they want to know one incredibly simple thing. Can you actually pay it back? Lenders don't bank on dreams, They're stress testing your cash flow to make sure you can service debt. Repayment capacity isn't some vague promise. It's the hard, verifiable ability of your business to generate enough consistent profit to cover those payments. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine 2 businesses, both pulling in exactly 20 grand a month in revenue. Business A burns through almost all of it, leaving them with a razor-thin $500 margin. Yikes. Business B, on the other hand, operates lean, generating an $8,000 surplus every single month. To a bank, Business A is a giant red flag, but Business B, they're rolling out the red carpet. Lenders care infinitely more about your cash surplus than they do about your amazing underlying idea. A brilliant concept with zero cash flow is just too risky, but a profitable operation with consistent cash, that's a lender's dream. All right, section 4, what lenders really want. Let's talk about graduating to big league bank financing. Right alongside repayment capacity, banks are heavily scrutinizing something called solvency. While repayment capacity answers, can you make the monthly payments? Solvency answers a kind of dark question. What exactly backs those payments up if everything goes completely off the rails? Solvency is your safety net. It's the tangible assets that lenders can claim if the worst-case scenario happens. They want absolute confidence that you're stable enough to weather a storm. The stronger your repayment capacity and your solvency, the easier getting that check becomes. A lot of founders strut into a bank thinking their passion and vision will just win the loan officer over. Actually, scratch that. It almost never happens. Banks operate on a strict, cold checklist. Revenue, expenses, profitability, existing debt, cash flow, and your detailed financial statements. They want concrete, undeniable evidence that you can meet your obligations. It's literally black and white. Strong numbers across these criteria mean your chances of approval skyrocket. Weak numbers, securing traditional financing is going to be a massive uphill battle. Now for Section 5, choosing your funding path. Let's match that capital to your actual strategy. Once your numbers are rock solid, it's like a menu of options opens up to you. But your ideal path depends entirely on your growth stage and what you actually need the cash for. Need to build a facility or buy heavy equipment? Go for a bank loan. Facing a short-term payroll gap? You'll want a flexible credit line. Trying to scale at lightning speed without monthly debt payments? Bring on investors in exchange for some equity. You could also look at leasing to avoid massive upfront costs, or even team up with strategic partners who bring both money and industry know-how to the table. Every single option here has major advantages and for sure, major trade-offs. But wait, before we wrap up, we have to cover Section 6, the biggest funding mistake. This is when money actually makes things so much worse. Here is the absolute golden rule. Debt does not solve a broken business model. Borrowing money too early or using it to try and hide operational weaknesses will literally only multiply your problems. A lot of folks assume a lack of cash is the root of their struggle. But in reality, throwing cash at a business that isn't generating real value, you're just increasing the scale of the failure. Funding should be rocket fuel to accelerate growth, not a band-aid to slap over fundamental flaws. So before you even think about seeking external cash, you've got to get your house in order. Follow these steps. First, nail your product market fit. Second, validate that there's actual sustained customer demand out there. Third, get to positive cash flow. And fourth, tighten up your operational efficiency so you aren't just burning cash for no reason. The truth is, capital naturally chases strong businesses, and it runs away from weak ones. A weak business is going to struggle even if you drop $1 million in its lap. If you take away just one thing from this explainer today, let it be this quote: investors fund growth, banks fund stability. Funding isn't about just blindly finding money. It's about proving to the market that you know exactly how to use it. Early on, you lean on personal networks and investors who believe in your explosive growth potential. But as you stabilize, your cash flow opens doors to banks who just want to fund a sure thing. Knowing which stage you're in dictates exactly whose door you should be knocking on. So I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. Take a hard, honest look at your operations today and ask yourself, is your business built for rapid growth or reliable stability? Knowing the true answer to that question is absolutely key before you start seeking out your next round of financing. Thanks so much for joining me today.